Hello, and welcome to episode 13 of the Liberland Show. I'm your host, Adam J. Carswell. Today we are joined by Jeff Berwick. Jeff is a world diplomat of Liberland, and this is sort of an inception moment right now, having him on the show, as I personally first found out about Liberland, I want to say in the summer of 2017, Jeff, when you were out there doing something. So started following Liberland then, and the rest is history. We got to meet for the first time last year in Freedom Fest in Vegas, and just really grateful for all that Jeff does. So Jeff, thank you for joining us today. And do you have any opening remarks for the listeners?
No, except for that's great. I'm our fellow countryman now, and I'm glad I'm on episode number 13.
Absolutely. So Jeff, when did you begin your journey as a Liberlandian?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I guess that was a couple of years ago. Right after it started, I heard about it. I actually didn't know Vit Jedlicka at the time, but a lot of my friends did. So I forget where I heard about it, but as soon as I heard about it, I was like, this sounds really good. And pretty quickly after that, I got in contact with Vit. I had him on my show, Anarcast, and I was pretty much on board from that moment. It was very quickly after he had founded the country. And I told Vit from that point, I said, if there's anything I can do to help Liberland, I will. And I still stick to that. I will do anything I can to help Liberland. I'm still very passionate about the idea, about the project, about what's going on, and very happy to still be involved.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there right now. I have to ask you, are you considering purchasing a floating home?
Talk about seasteading or in Liberland?
In Liberland, yep. That's
okay, because I'm actually also looking at seasteading, but
yeah.
I'm looking at all the options to try to get some sort of freedom in this world. But, I'm actually not totally up to date on all the Liberland news, and I have to actually extend congratulations to Vit on everything he's been doing. I saw he was speaking for an hour in front of the European Union Parliament just recently. I follow him on social media, and I see him doing all this stuff. So I wasn't fully aware about this floating project, but definitely we'll look into it.
Yeah, it's very young, so I guess testing your Liberland knowledge. Speaking of seasteading real quick, that is an interesting topic. I'm just curious, what have you done in regards to research and maybe moving forward with that?
Well, not too much. I do know I just had the, what they call calls themselves the chief, I forget the exact term he uses. It's a pretty funny term, but basically the CEO of seasteading, Joe Quirk, and I just had him on Anarcast a few months ago. I invited him to come speak at Anarchapulco, which he will be, along with Vit Jedlicka. So as I mentioned, I'm in favor of any sort of way that we can find areas in this world to have a bit more freedom and just really sort of test out our ideas as well, our voluntarist, anarcho-capitalist type ideas. A lot of people say when we talk about them that, oh, those are crazy, it'll never work. Well, we'd like to show that it can and will work, but we just need some places to start doing that. So I'm very interested in the seasteading. I know Joe Quirk's been doing a lot of stuff, and he's the same as Vit. He's just been doing a lot of great stuff. So there's a lot of stuff going forward with a lot of these places right now. So it's a very exciting time for people who want some liberty.
Definitely. Yeah, couldn't agree more with that. Transitioning now back to Liberland, can you tell us about a unique life experience you've had since being a Liberlandian?
Well, I guess one of the most recent ones is I was in Vancouver airport, which I usually end up in the back room for a few hours. They seem to know who I am, and they're waiting for me every time. And they searched all my bags and everything. And it's kind of funny because I said, oh, you guys are just looking to rob me. And they were like, what? How could you? We're not thieves. And I was like, yeah, you are. That's what you do. And they're like, how dare you? You disrespected us. And at the end of it, they stole my Liberland passport. That was the only thing they could find. And they actually gave me this document and said they took it away because it was a fantasy document. And if you ask me, the Canadian passport is much more of a fantasy document than the Liberland passport.
Yeah, I agree with you in certain respect, definitely to that. And I actually think I remember you sharing that story not too long ago. So it's pretty funny. I forgot. It was your Liberland passport. So we're going to have to get you a new one, I think.
Yeah, actually, the guys in Canada were amazing. Vit was amazing. I didn't even tell Vit about it, but I guess he heard through the grapevine, and he contacted me, put me in touch with the Canadian Embassy of Liberland, and a bunch of great guys there. And they said, oh, yeah, we'll get it back for you. We can help you with all the paperwork. And I've just been so busy, I just haven't even bothered to even look into it too much. But I was really impressed at how much they wanted to help and what kind of infrastructure they really had. They had a bunch of deal with these things.
So, Jeff, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your personal background, what you've done professionally? Tell us a little bit more about who Jeff Berwick is.
Well, I'm getting quite old now, so I've done quite a few things. But one of my first things I did, I'm an entrepreneur. So I started a financial website in Canada called stockhouse.com. And it's still to this day, I believe, the largest financial website in Canada. During the tech bubble and then the bursting of the bubble, I ended up selling the company. That's around the time I met Doug Casey, and he told me that I was a libertarian. And then he went on to say that I'm an anarchist. And I didn't know what either of those words actually meant too much back in 2002. But once I looked into it, I started to get really excited, and I looked into all the philosophy and looked into things like Austrian economics, and I was really expecting that housing bubble to burst in 2007, and after it did, I really felt like I understood how the financial system and the central banking system and actually the governmental and political systems, how they all work, and I decided to start the Dollar Vigilante in 2010, which is still going. It's about 9 years old now, and it's one of the biggest financial newsletters in the world. We're a big cover of crypto, and I started my podcast called Anarchast in 2011, which just focuses on spreading the philosophy of anarcho-capitalism.
Right, and also your I'd say simply your YouTube channel is pretty prominent as well. I'm not sure how many subscribers you're up to now. That's something that I think you have that gets pretty substantial reach, correct?
Yeah, the Dollar Vigilante's got well over 200,000 subscribers, I believe. I'm not sure about Anarchast. I think 40,000. So yeah, I've been around a while, and we've done lots of videos and things like that. But yeah, it's getting a fairly decent size audience now.
Great. Well, can you tell us something that you believe would be a smart move or a strong move for an ambitious or aspiring Liberlandian?
Well, are you talking about, what do you mean exactly?
So someone who's perhaps listening to this interview or watching this interview right now, and they want to get involved with Liberland. In your opinion, what's the most proactive way they can go about doing that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Vit Jedlik would be the perfect person to ask that. He knows better than I do, but I know that he's incredibly responsive. I don't know how he does it, really. I'm really impressed by Vit. He responds to almost every email. He's on the ball on a lot of stuff. For me personally, when I first got into contact with Vit, I just let him know that with my show and everything, and my conference in Acapulco, that I'll do everything I can to really spread the word on Liberland. So he saw that as being very helpful to the countries. So he extended to me recently to become a diplomat in Liberland. So, but I know that he's very interested in people who have things to offer. So I'm not even sure. That's why I said to ask Vit Jedlik. But if you have certain skills or certain abilities, or for example, if you're in a certain country where Liberland doesn't have a embassy yet, I'm sure that would be of quite a bit of interest. I don't even know how many embassies Liberland has, but it's quite a few now. But if there's any countries where it's not, and if you can help get that country to recognize Liberland, that of course is incredibly valuable, and things like that. So just reach out to Liberland and see how let them know where you're at and what you can offer, and see if you can be of any help.
Mm-hmm. And based on the progress that you've been able to see with Liberland, really since the beginning, the founding of the country, where do you see it in the next 3 to 5 years?
That's a good question, because as I said, I've been really impressed with how well it's been going in just a couple of years. The amount of media attention it's even gotten across the world, the amount of people who know about it now, the amount of embassies, as I pointed out. I know that there's numerous places considering, recognizing Liberland, numerous countries at the moment. I don't know how many have actually done it yet. I think there's 1 or 2, but there's many that are considering it. It was just in front of the European Union Parliament, as I mentioned, and quite well received, actually, although we'll see what happens there. But that's really impressed me. When this first started, we had no idea if it would catch on at all. We had no idea if we'd go out and tell people about it and that would be it and it would just die. But I run into people from Liberland all the time. I was just at the North American Bitcoin Conference in Miami just a couple of days ago, and I ran into one of the Liberland diplomats, I believe, from Ohio, I believe, in the U.S.
Yep.
Yeah, and I run into Liberland people almost all over the place. Almost all of them are really, go-getters, really working hard to get the country recognized and up and running. So to think where it might be in 3 to 5 years is really it's really hard to imagine, because I didn't think it would happen this fast already. And as I mentioned, Vit's done an amazing job, just absolutely amazed. He's I think he must work on this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because he's just always everywhere all the time. doing things and moving things forward. So 3 to 5 years, there's no way to know. But if we can get recognized by a significant amount of countries in the next year or so, which I think is very possible, given what I know about what's going on, then we can start to really develop and start to move forward on developing the country. And then we talk about, I've seen all the plans, I've seen the billions of dollars that people have been talking about that are ready to be invested in what they see as being the next sort of Hong Kong, but even better. So, 3 to 5 years from now, anything is possible. Given what we've seen in just the first couple of years, nothing would surprise me.
Right, yeah, and we're in an age where technology is really booming. Everything's growing exponentially, so to say, and so I kind of see the same trends happening with Liberland, which happens to be a very technology-oriented, blockchain-based country. So I like what you had to say.
Yeah, and I think there's, hundreds of thousands of people have already applied for residency. Like, it's going, incredibly well for just a startup that didn't even exist a couple of years ago. So really a lot of momentum with Liberland right now, and super excited about it. I know Vit's coming to Anarchapulco in the next couple of weeks with his entourage as usual, and really looking forward to that. And we'll be talking with the seasteading guys, Joe Quirk, and maybe we can figure out some things that they can even work together in Liberland, since Liberland's looking at doing some floating sort of platforms or whatever it is they're doing. I know that Joe Quirk's really into that sort of a thing. So, just onward and upward, and lots going on. For people out there, if you haven't, I think you just go to the Liberland website, you can sign up and get email updates. There's just always stuff going on, and very interesting times, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and again, in regards to seasteading, from me to you, keep setting the example, keep sharing with us what you're doing, because that's definitely a world I'd like to explore one day, and I like the principles behind it. If you want to take a moment to even tell us a little bit about Anarchapulco and what you've got going on in Mexico.
Yeah, it's our 5th year coming up in February 14th to 17th, so just a couple of weeks away now. And as I mentioned, Vit Jedlicka will be there. A lot of Liberland people will be there, I'm sure. Seasteading people will be there. We have Doug Casey speaking. He's one of my mentors. Ron Paul, Judge Napolitano, David Icke, Cynthia McKinney. The list just goes on and on of, as you mentioned, this entire idea of freedom, of voluntarism, of anarcho-capitalism, whatever word you want to use for it, is really catching on. And Anarchapulco is a real sign of that. So we started 5 years ago with about 150 people. The next year was about 300 people. The next year was 600. Last year was 1,200. This year's going to be well over 2,000. So it's doubled every year in size. And it's in a place that isn't all that easy to get to in Acapulco, Mexico. There's hardly any direct flights from anywhere. And we have people from all over the world coming. So it's basically you're on the beach in Mexico for a week with some of the most amazing people in the world who are all working on getting freedom spreading. And it's really happening. So it's really exciting times.
And there is kind of another conference similar, right? Anarcha Portugal, I want to say. Is that?
Yeah, we've had numerous ones sort of spawn off. Of course, we don't believe in intellectual property, so you can start up your own anarcho whatever conference, and actually I think that's great. I totally have no problem with that. I'd like to see voluntarist anarcho-capitalist conferences across the world. And there was one that started last year called Anarcha Portugal, which I actually attended and spoke at. And there's even ones right around the time in Acapulco, Mexico. There's other people who have started up their own conferences. So, it's a very, like anything sort of anarchist or voluntarist, there's no real rules, there's no intellectual property, you can do whatever you want, basically. And so people have started up their own conferences and things like that. But really the big one, obviously, is Anarchapulco with, 2,000 plus people. And we have actually about 200 speakers. So it's going to be an amazing week, not just on freedom and liberty, of course, but on cryptocurrency. We're going to have a full 4 days on Cryptopulco, 4 full days of the Health and Wellness Conference. So it's like numerous conferences in one. So depending on whatever you're interested in, there's plenty to see and do.
Great. Well, that's all the time we have for today, Jeff. Any closing remarks, any words you want to share with the listeners and the viewers?
Not too much. Check out Anarchapulco, just anarchapulco.com. There's still a few hotel rooms available. We bought out the entire Princess Hotel with 1,000 rooms. If you go to the website and look up hotel, you can see most of the rooms are sold out, but there's still a few available. So if you rush, you can get those and come to Anarchapulco. And just to all the people out there who's involved with Liberland, keep up the great work. I see a lot of stuff going on. I've met so many amazing people. I was even at the diplomatic event in London a few months ago with numerous heads of African countries, and many of them were very interested in how they could work with Liberland. So there's lots going on, and I just can't wait and really hope to see this flourish. And if Liberland becomes a recognized country where I can actually use the passport to travel, I will get rid of my fantasy document, and that's the Canadian passport. I don't want anything to do with that place. It's a total police state, nanny state, welfare state. It's an absolute disaster. I don't even like going there anymore. So hopefully I can find my true homeland in Liberland soon, and hopefully we can soon start to develop it. And for people who don't know, it's in a beautiful part of the world, right in there between Croatia and Serbia. And if anyone's been to that Croatian coast, it's one of the most beautiful places in the world. So really amazing place, and really excited, and I hope we really get it rolling maybe this year.
Yep. And I do have to say, every now and then you'll visit Canada to watch a hockey game, correct?
That's basically the only thing I care about in Canada anymore. But I can watch the hockey games from the beach on the internet down here, and hopefully soon in Liberland, and then I can get rid of that fantasy Canadian passport document. I have
to stand up briefly for the basketball fans out there, because I'm a former player, college athlete, and everything. I know every now and then you'll like to joke around and say, "Oh, guys, putting a little ball in the hoop or whatever." So to me, basketball is my hockey, because I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. We don't have a hockey team. But, yeah, I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Liberland would be pretty easy to get a basketball team going. I know there's a soccer football team for Liberland. If we ever get a hockey team going, we'll know it's going well.
Yep. There's a hockey team, actually.
What?
It's in Indonesia. I think they just won some type of championship.
What?
So go ahead and
Google Liberland hockey team?
Yes.
I want to try out, so I'm going to contact Vit. I haven't put on the skates in like 30 years, but give me a shot on the fourth line. I'll be like a grinding left winger.
All right. Sounds good. Well, everyone, thank you for tuning in. We will catch you in the next episode of the Liberland Show. I'm your host, Adam J. Carswell. Today we were joined by Jeff Berwick, World Diplomat of Liberland. Thank you for tuning in. And again, we will catch you in the next episode.